In 2015, the quiet neighborhoods of Springfield, Missouri, looked like the kind of place where nothing unusual ever happens. At the center of one of these streets sat a small pink house generously gifted by a local charity. Inside lived Dee Blanchard, a woman the community viewed as a hero. Neighbors saw a relentlessly devoted mother who sacrificed everything to care for her child. That child was Gypsy Rose. To anyone who asked, Gypsy was a deeply fragile girl fighting for her life. She sat in a wheelchair, her head often covered in scarves, and spoke with a soft, childlike voice. Dee told everyone her daughter suffered from leukemia, muscular dystrophy, and severe seizures. The local community, and soon strangers from all over, rallied behind them. Charities stepped in to cover their bills. People donated money out of their own pockets, and organizations sent the mother and daughter on all expenses paid trips to places like Disney World. To the outside world, looking at that pink house, this was a tragic but beautiful story. It was a picture of a mother's total dedication to her daughter's survival. Then a bizarre, disturbing message appeared on Dee's Facebook page. The post was alarming enough that terrified neighbors immediately picked up the phone and called the authorities to check on the house. What police found inside shattered the quiet neighborhood. Dee had been killed. Gypsy was nowhere to be found. The immediate fear was that the helpless, wheelchair-bound girl had been kidnapped by her mother's killer. Investigators scrambled to track the digital footprints left behind, tracing online activity and messages across state lines. The trail led them directly to a house in Wisconsin, where they found Gypsy alongside a man named Nicholas Gojon. But when the police walked through the door, the girl they found defied everything they thought they knew. Gypsy wasn't in a wheelchair. She was perfectly healthy, and she was walking on her own 2 feet. The paralyzed, dying girl the public had spent years supporting didn't exist. Now investigators had to figure out how a healthy young woman ended up arrested for her own mother's murder. To understand how they got to Wisconsin, we have to look at what was actually happening back in Missouri. Behind closed doors, Gypsy was never biologically sick. She could eat normal food, she could walk, and her body was naturally growing up. This cycle of abuse defined her life. Dee suffered from a dangerous psychological condition. She intentionally fabricated symptoms to secure a constant stream of attention, sympathy, and total control over Gypsy's life. That control extended far beyond unnecessary medical treatments. Dee strictly managed every aspect of Gypsy's existence. She hid her daughter's birth certificate and actively erased her true age, keeping Gypsy entirely in the dark about how old she really was. Whenever Gypsy questioned this reality or resisted the fake sickness, she was swiftly punished. Dee used physical and emotional abuse to terrorize her, repeatedly telling Gypsy that she was weak and that the outside world would destroy her without her mother's protection. Gypsy lived as a healthy human being systematically trapped in a state of childhood, far removed from the medical patient the world believed her to be. As Gypsy grew older, she found exactly one window to the outside world. Late at night, while her mother was asleep, she would secretly log on to the internet. In online chat rooms, she could drop the sick girl persona and simply be herself. That is where she met Nicholas Gojon, a quiet, socially awkward stranger who lived in another state. For the first time, someone was listening to Gypsy and treating her like a real person. Their late-night conversation slowly evolved into an online romance. Feeling safe, Gypsy started revealing the reality of her daily life. She confessed that she wasn't actually sick, that she felt like a prisoner in her own home, and that her mother controlled her every move. Nicholas believed her. He told her he wanted to protect her and be her hero. Having someone on the outside validate her reality finally broke Gypsy's psychological isolation, introducing the dangerous possibility of escape. But the logistics of running away quickly proved impossible. Dee monitored everything, and no one would believe the wheelchair-bound girl over her mother. Gypsy felt completely trapped, leading her to the realization that she could only truly live if her mother did not. She shared this thought with Nicholas. The more they discussed it, the more plausible it seemed to both of them. They agreed on a plan, setting a timeline for June 2015. Nicholas traveled to Missouri and waited until the neighborhood was asleep. Gypsy led him into the pink house. While she hid in another room, covering her ears to block out the horrific reality, Nicholas walked into Dee's bedroom and stabbed her multiple times. The two didn't flee in immediate panic. They stayed briefly before escaping together to Wisconsin, stepping into an unfamiliar sense of physical freedom. After decades of absolute restriction, the pressure had nowhere else to go. Her lifelong captivity culminated in an unimaginably violent and tragic release. Once in police custody, Gypsy laid everything bare. During her interrogation, she exposed the decades of medical abuse, the unnecessary medications, and the total psychological control to a stunned public and medical community. The legal system then had to process a crime with practically no precedent. Nicholas, who physically carried out the killing, faced the harshest penalty. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Gypsy reached a plea agreement, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, and received a state prison sentence. The courtroom relied on strict legal definitions of murder. But outside those walls, society struggled to reconcile the letter of the law with the incredibly complex reality of a lifelong captive fighting for her own survival. As documentaries aired and interviews spread, public opinion began to shift. People continued debating whether Gypsy should be viewed as a cold-blooded killer or as a victim pushed to the absolute edge. Yet the outcome of the trial created a sharp irony. Stripped of civilian rights and locked behind iron bars, Gypsy was finally experiencing genuine autonomy inside prison. No one was dictating her medical chart or forcing her into a wheelchair. She could finally learn, grow, and take ownership of her own identity without her mother controlling her every move. The Gypsy Rose case stands as a reminder how effectively fear and isolation can create a life of total restriction. In this instance, breaking that cycle of control required a violent rupture, leaving behind a cost that can never be undone.